Hello and welcome. Sit tight. Catch Dog Concepts will be live very soon. Thank you for tuning in. What is up? What is up? What is up? Catch Dog family, we back at it again. Had a strong week this week. No, last week. Excuse me. I'm sorry. This week, got a special guest and another special guest. A little special in a lot of different ways, I say. But yeah, we got Lonestar Mastiff. We're gonna let him up. We're gonna get this dog talk, this massive talk going. What's going on?
How's it going?
Doing good. We got our co-host today, Hunter Larson, aka Hardmouth Canine. So we're gonna get right into it. Give the people a brief introduction of who you are, your name, where you from.
Gary Molly. I own Lonestar Mastiffs. I'm in Northeast Texas. We're in Winsboro, about 2 hours east of Dallas.
Okay, okay. So talk about your first experience with dogs.
So I grew up. So I guess growing up, my parents had Dobermans. And in the Caribbean, everybody had Rottweilers, Dobermans. That was kind of like the Rottweiler really was the go-to dog down there,
Right.
as like an estate guardian. If you had anything worth protecting, you would have a dog down there. Just it's a lot of these places are third world country type
Right.
scenarios, so they heavily rely on their dogs to be an active part of the defense, especially because they don't allow guns there.
For sure. So with that, I actually have a friend, Tyrion. Shout out to him out in Canada. He's actually in the he's in the same predicament as you stated. He can't have any weapons, have any guns, to defend his home. What are some things you may recommend people to do as far as that? Even like ones that have different requirements as far as a smaller house with a bigger family, a smaller dog maybe in need of, but a protection dog. What are some things you may recommend them to do in that certain situation?
So, when you're looking at a family estate guardian dog, one of the most important things is that in most of these cases, the dog's going to be around children. So,
Right.
um, your normal personal protection dogs are not necessarily going to be the best dogs. Your Malinois, your really high drive German Shepherds, Dutch
Right.
Shepherds, dogs of that caliber are not what you think of when you think of a family dog.
Yeah.
Um, so I like Rottweilers. Dobermans recently they've got a lot of health problems with the DCM1 heart stuff.
Right.
And that kind of I've always been my first dog. My personal first dog was a Rottweiler, and then started getting Mastiffs after that. I like the Mastiffs because a lot of times you can have a high drive Mastiff and it can still have an off switch, be around kids, and quote unquote be a nanny dog.
Right. Okay. Okay. That's definitely that's facts. I mean, a lot of people say experienced older dog men. They say they just love the mastiff just because they know how to chill, but they get active when they get active. So I did hear your family bred Warlock Dobermans at one point.
We did.
What is the difference from a regular Doberman or the standard Doberman than a Warlock Doberman?
So like it's just a line. You've got Warlocks, you got Kimbertalls. There's just different lines of Dobermans. The Warlocks tend to be bigger, thicker boned. That's like kind of comparing like an Alibi to a Central Asian Ovcharka. A CAO is going to have like a thicker bone density. The Alibis tend to be like a smaller frame dog, with a little bit of a temperament difference.
Gotcha.
So it's just like a line specific. Deal. Any breed has their own individual
Right.
lines.
For sure. Okay. So you are a dog trainer to a degree. So when did you first get into that, and what made you want to?
So When I had the so I was working in the gun industry. I had the opportunity looking for like so I've always wanted to own a ranch. I was looking at possibly doing exotic animals. Always wanted dog breeding to be on the side. Um, and then I kind of just things just kind of fell into place to allow me to try to do this full time. And I wanted to um, I wanted to get training. I wanted to learn how to work at a facility that had a lot of dogs. I wanted to learn the medical aspects of it, insurance, just kind of everything. So I picked a canine training facility and decided to go there and get all my certifications.
Okay. What was that process like? What are some things you learned? Who were some people you may have met that helped you pick up on a lot of things you know now?
We still on?
Can you hear me?
I can see you. I can't see him.
Oh shoot. Hold on a minute. I'm about to add him back again. Can you see him now? How
All
we
right, there
looking?
you go.
Now, there we
Okay.
go. All
Yep.
right.
All right, cool.
Sometimes you gotta do the camera turn on and off.
Oh, let me say that question again. So what are some things you picked up going to that school or class? I'm not organization, not sure what you would name it.
So
What are
it
some
was like a or it was like a 5 month live-in program where you basically learn everything on how to start. We did 2 batches of green dogs where we were importing them from Poland, so I learned the import process. Picking them up at the airport. um, they were selected by the owner of the company based on drive mainly, for arson dogs, bomb dogs, narcotics apprehension tracking. Um, and simultaneously he would develop, he'd do like 30 dogs per class. You'd have a class of handlers that would come in. We'd train the dogs for 2 months, and then the handlers would be there for the last 3 weeks of the training, and then they would certify with the dogs. So we did a couple batches of these. um, and just kind of went all the way through from a green dog all the way to a certified police canine or military working dog or whatever the scenario was. The bigger departments all have their own training program and facilities, but this is, how you start that dog and where they would be, purchased. You put a dog with a handler, etc.
Okay, okay. What are some similarities between the military training and the police training in a dog?
I mean, you're looking for kind of the same thing. You want a high drive dog, you want high trainability. Um, if in the military working dog sense, you're probably looking more for like what would be a dual purpose canine. You have single purpose and dual purpose. The single purpose are going to be your narcotics and tracking dogs. A lot of times, the dual purpose also, will do. They'll do narcotics tracking and apprehension, just meaning that they're also trained to bite. And that also has a lot to do with what breed of dog is selected. While we were there, we were running. We did mainly labs, Mals, Dutch shepherds, and German shepherds.
Okay.
But we had a couple off breeds come through. Like we had a setter come through, a cocker
Mm,
spaniel. So there was definitely the guy who owned the place. He would not select dogs based on breed. He was selecting just on temperament. And then
okay.
he would pick what the dog was going to be trained in based on the temperament.
Right. Gotcha. Okay, I like that. Um. So what? So you did say there is no certain. Well, you did kind of speak on what type of dog is. What is the word I'm looking for? What type of dog is applicable to that? What dog is going to be built for that? Why do you think the Malinois have become so famous or so overused? I'd say they are heavily. I don't want to say overused, heavily used with trainers and just being on the scene more. They weren't seen as much before.
So they're higher drive. If you take a German Shepherd and a Malinois, put them side by side, the Malinois is going to be, more energetic, higher drive. Um, they require a lot more attention, but they're also more trainable. You can get them to do things that it's going to take more time to get a German Shepherd to do the same thing. Um, but you're sacrificing, so the German Shepherd has a little bit more individuality and is less handler reliant.
Okay.
Um, so with the Mal, I think you're sacrificing some of your autonomous ability. The Mal is much more of a handler oriented dog. It needs to be told what to do. It's not necessarily like that's so you wouldn't want to use a Mal as a guard dog necessarily because they need a handler with them at all times. It's not
Right.
um, they're not designed to operate and patrol a property without
Right.
a handler.
Right. Right. Okay. Okay. Um, let me see. Let me see. My next question is: when did you realize you wanted? Actually, I'm sorry. No, no, this is the right question. Excuse me. When did you realize you wanted to start a program, and what was the first dog you had purchased to be a part of your program?
So the first dog, so when I decided I was going to start the program when I had the opportunity to buy land, um, and I didn't know what I was going to do with it, how big it would get. Once I started the training program, that's really when I was like committed, and there's no turning back. I bought two Caucasian of Charcas from Croatia. I got two Borbles from South Africa,
Mm.
and
Oh,
I got some mixed Neapolitan Mastiff, English Mastiff dogs in the United States, and I got them all at the same time while I was and was going through the 6 month period where they can't ship them immediately, and I was doing that while I was at the training facility. So pretty much as soon as I got out, the dogs were on the ground and I was picking them up. And at the same time, I was trying to purchase the property, get the property going, get fences set up, and start working on a kennel, all that.
okay. Oh, you were spending money.
Yeah, yeah,
You were
that's
spending money.
what the whole first year was a lot of spending money.
Yeah. Okay. Um. Before I have Hunter go ahead chime in on his questions that he wanted to ask within certain things you said. Talk about the process of importing. What's some difficulties of it? If you can, just walk us through the process, really, if you can.
Okay, so it's not something I want to do again. First
Yeah.
off, it's you're playing a lottery. You're getting dogs sight unseen. You're taking social media videos and a breeder's word. I mean, I spent hours, up all night talking to these people because it's on the other side of the world. So it'd
Right.
be 2, 3 in the morning here, and talking to them, making sure that I first off trusted them, giving them like $5,000. That's
Right.
a huge commitment with someone you've never met before. On the Borbles, I did actually send somebody to South Africa.
Okay.
um, he's a friend. He was Rhodesian Special Forces.
Mm.
So I gave him $5,000 and sent him to South Africa and trusted him to um, pick up. And so he went to Cape Town and he had to drive all the way to Pretoria, which is like northern South Africa, and risk some really bad situations on the highways there. He said people were throwing boulders at him, people were getting hacked up with machetes, and he managed to get all the way to the farms in northern Pretoria and select two dogs and got them on a plane and got them back,
Wow.
picked a breeder and everything, and it all worked out. So that was awesome. But it's a lot of trust and a lot of faith in, and it's a gamble. Like you don't know, you're giving them a lot of money to, and you don't necessarily know what you're getting. In most cases, these dogs are not genetic tested,
Right.
have minimal health testing. You're trusting a breeder's word on the temperament, so
Yeah.
it can be kind of a sketchy situation. I did get burned pretty bad on a Caucasian Ovcharka from Russia. That was the last dog I imported. I also imported a female that had been bred to one of the reigning Saabs champions in South Africa. That one went sideways during
Oh
COVID.
man.
The female got stuck at at the airport for 3 days. And then that was the flight she was on ended up being like the third flight out of the country. The South African government shut down all flights, and she ended up getting stuck for, I mean, it was like 3 or 4 months.
Dang.
Wow.
And so it's a risk, it's a gamble. It goes better if you have a broker agent. I
Yeah,
did
that's
most of
not
the
the
brokering myself, which is also, I wouldn't recommend that. If at all possible, use somebody, use a shipping company. Out of all the dogs I've shipped, I prefer to use Lufthansa Airlines. I've had the best luck with them. Shipping into Dallas has not been too bad. I usually, try to set aside a whole day for it. And you got to go through customs. You got to, get all your paperwork in, submit it to customs, and it's a process for sure.
okay. Okay, that was a
Yeah,
great explanation,
wow.
man. Man, like at some point I'll think about importing a dog. I'd be so nervous. I'm like, I'm about to call the police.
Right. Like I said, I don't want to do it again. And now that I've got, a network of breeders I work with and, a lot of my own dogs, like I doubt that I'll be probably importing more than a couple dogs in the rest of my life. Cause I've
Okay,
pretty much got what I need.
nice.
Yeah.
I'm real into the Borbal. That's the first dog I do want to get once I get going into being in the dogs heavy. Uh I'm not gonna keep Hunter too long as far as waiting for him to ask his question. So Hunter, go ahead and ask your questions because I could talk all night.
Oh, I know you can. Don't worry. Uh, nah. So, I mean, I'm a little bit more into the LGDs than C.D.C is, but so that's kind of where he and I have kind of talked, and I was going to go a little bit more with that question. So, I mean, I guess the first question is, I mean, you're one of the only people I've seen that are using LGDs for like bite work and stuff. So, what was kind of the inspiration or the reasoning or whatever behind that?
So there's some guys in Russia and Eastern Europe that are using Caucasians and Central Asians for bite work. Um, I've been watching those videos since I was like in high school, pop up on, way back when, and they would any of these big LGD dogs, they're just so big and so powerful. Like I always wanted to have a dog capable of that. Um, in reality, it's a lot of work to get and they're never going to be a Mal. They're never going to be a German Shepherd. You're putting in a lot of work and you're not going to get the same thing out of it. These dogs are still, they're a guard dog. It's, they're working out of defense. They're not a prey driven dog. The whole concept behind these dogs, for thousands of years is that they have low prey drive and really high defense drive. So, working them in a personal protection, aspect is counterintuitive to their genetics to some degree. You're working them
Yeah,
strictly from
definitely.
defense, uh, not prey drive at all. And they never want to take, a suit or a sleeve. They're always about the man.
Gotcha. Um, so yeah, kind of building off that, like with your specific band dog program, the Lone Star Mastiff, what was kind of the inspiration for using the livestock guardians in that program? Because not many people are doing that.
I don't know if he heard you. He asked, I don't know. You back,
Yeah,
Hunter?
yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, that's weird. All right. You want me to ask again, Joe? All right. No, so just kind of building off that with the Lone Star Mastiff and everything. Um, I mean, you're one of the only people that I've seen that have put an LGD inside a band dog program. So, what were kind of the benefits and the reasoning, and like what's been the positives from using LGDs in your band dog program?
So there's definitely been positives and negatives. The biggest reason I wanted to use LGDs is their independence. They are, they're a sentry dog. They are perimeter patrol dogs or guard dogs. They are truly designed thousands and thousands of years of genetics to decide what to do and be capable, be very intelligent, and make decisions that, you know, most of these dogs in our modern world are not necessarily capable of making. And I've seen these dogs do incredible things, and the way they adapt to a certain environment, they learn the environment, they learn what is okay and what is not okay, and they make decisions on whether or not they're going to bite. And in our society, you know, we're a lawsuit away from, you know, losing everything. So, um, that, you know, if you're going to turn dogs out and let them loose, they got to be top notch, and they got to be real smart about what they're doing. And you've got to trust that dog, because you are trusting them with your entire livelihoods, your property, your everything. And I don't think that some of the Mastiff breeds have their, you know, the prey drive can supersede their ability to make a sound decision sometimes.
Oh, Hunter, you had your mic off, but I'm I'm here now. I got it. So some people, Hunter kind of touched on it. I mean, it's kind of the same thing, but they are different dogs. Um, some of the mastiffs, you know, some like Press Canarios, some other mastiffs are used for protection training, but like some of your dogs, like you own a Neapolitan Mastiff, the English Mastiffs, the Great Danes. Most people say they're not supposed to do protection training. Some of it's a misconception. Some of it is based off of experience of them being hard headed or understanding that this is not a real bite. That I'm biting a sleeve. I'm not biting the man. So, what are some difficulties with that, and why do you think people say that a state guardian should not be protection training dogs?
I mean, I disagree with that, obviously. That's why I'm doing that. But you know, I mean, at the end of the day, it is training. They're definitely smart enough to know the difference. Some of the dogs you're not going to get to engage, and you're not going to be doing necessarily sleeve work with them. It may be all agitation work.
Right.
You may never feed a sleeve to a dog, but be very confident that that dog absolutely wants, you know, to bite somebody real bad and eat them alive. Like,
Yeah.
and you may never test that with the sleeve. And it may, you know, and some dogs you can put them on a sleeve, and it actually, you know, you're backtracking, you're regressing, or in a suit too, a suit especially. You know, it's more counterintuitive for them to be biting a suit, and definitely with the LGDs too. That's definitely a thing. I've only got, and like doing like long sends or something where they have to, you know, stuff that would be real easy for like a Mal or, you know, these personal protection dogs.
Yeah.
I've only got one LGD that I've ever done a long send with. And honestly, it was a scary situation. He took the decoy to the ground and then stood over him and started growling in his face. He immediately let go of him, got over him, and just, I mean, within inches started growling with his neck and his face right there. And you know, he's a gumper, and he's a big serious dog, and that's, you know, from the decoy's perspective, that's not something you want to see.
Oh, not at all.
Yeah, I've done decoy work, and I'm just imagining that situation. That sounds awful.
I mean, we were filming and everybody dropped the camera to run. Like everybody, you know, we had a long line and everything, you know, we got control of the situation real quick. I mean, he was on e-collars and everything, but still
Yeah.
it's, you know,
Yeah.
Still dangerous. Yeah.
yeah, we're like, we
That's
probably shouldn't do that again.
that's one reason some people say it. They don't even talk about the temperament or the trainability. They just talk about the ease of just overpowering a man, or just so much the power that these LGDs and estate guardians like the Neapolitan or even the Warble withhold. They can overpower a man easily, especially we talking about like an average man like me. I'm 300 pounds. I'm not strong. I'm stronger than the average person. Hunter, he's strong as well, I'm sure. Uh, but like the average person will most likely not be able to handle a LGD or a state guardian. What's your thoughts on that? I've seen, I've done some videos on dog versus man. What do you think about the state guardians and the LGDs when it comes to matching up against a man?
I mean, so first and foremost, that's experience because I mean, you can be small. I mean, I've seen women handle mastiffs
Right.
with, you know, prowess and be very good handlers, but it's, they know what they're doing. It's they've trained with these dogs. They know how to use the implements available, prong collar, e-collar. So I think that very much it's not physical strength. I think that comes down to mental training and knowledge, not physical strength.
Yeah. Okay. I think you kind of miss bro what I said. Some people have been saying like they can take on Kangol, Gomper, of
Oh, okay. So
Charka.
if you're the guy getting bit,
Yeah. We don't
so
condone no dog fighting, no
yeah.
human versus dog, none of that. This is just scenarios and just a fun topic, I think.
So I mean, they're not a mal. I mean, people overpower mals and German shepherds all the time.
Right.
It's that happens, and they are fur missiles. Their advantage is their speed. With these dogs, their advantage is their size and their low center of gravity. In a lot of cases, I mean, we've got a higher center of gravity. They're going to take us to the ground with ease. And once you're on the ground, it's their game. They're in control of the situation. That's
Yeah.
you never want to be the one on the ground trying to fight your way up from a dog.
No, definitely not. I posted a video of a Borble actually in South Africa. I don't know if you saw it.
I did. Yeah, I've
Yeah,
seen it a
yeah,
few places. Yeah, it was a good video.
that was something, man. He was handling him. Of course, he wasn't like biting, gripping the arm like a protection trained dog, but that's just a natural Borble. That's what I really love about that dog. I mean, they can hold their own naturally, like they've been bred to do that. What's your thoughts on the Borble? What made you like them? What are some things you may not like about them?
So when I first got into dogs, I preferred a sloppier, larger dog. And that was evident with the things that I was doing with the Neos or with my first round of Neo dogs, they're on the larger side.
Yeah,
Um,
big dogs. Yeah,
and then the Borbles, same thing. As I have gotten experience and knowledge, I am moving away from that. That's why I've had Dane in. I definitely am preferring a taller, lankier, faster structure now than when I first started. I've also seen a lot of the health issues that come along with these bigger, sloppier dogs,
yeah,
and
yeah. There is some, yeah, for sure.
I don't, and I think breeding nowadays gravitates towards the extremes, and I don't think that's a good direction. And I see it happening with a lot of the mastiff breeds. People are going for size or wrinkles or the biggest head and chest with the Borbles,
Yeah, yeah, facts.
and that's to the overall health of the breed. That's not a good thing. And from a working dog perspective, that's not a good thing.
For sure. Okay. Okay. Um, what was I about to say? Hunter, did you have anything before I continue on? I don't want to just sit here and hog the interview to myself.
No, you're all good. No, I mean, kind of. So going like with the LGDs, I know you've had a couple of different breeds, and you have a couple of different currently. Um, in your opinion, what or which LGD breed is the best for man work and for just normal LGD use?
Okay, so I would say so. I've got Gompers, I've got Central Asian of Charkas, and Caucasian of Charkas. I don't have any Central Asian of Charka breedings planned anytime in the near future. Um, I have a farm. I have livestock. I've got sheep, goats, cows, pigs, guineas, turkeys, chickens, everything but the horses and the donkeys pretty much. So the livestock guardians that I'm using, I am actually using them as livestock guardians. I've got the back of my property. Actually my neighbor just deforested their property. So now I am like the only forest land in the area left. And I'm surrounded by large acre farms. There's creeks and stuff running through. So we have a high predator load. We have a ton of hogs. Um, and so what I've decided moving forward, I think the Gomper has been the best livestock guardian breed for actual LGD usage. I'm going to continue breeding them as LGDs. The other, I'm probably only going to do 1 or 2 more Caucasian litters, and then I'm probably going to be done with Caucasians as well. Mainly because they're a lot of work. When I have to brush them in the summer, that's a weekly process. When I had, at the most, I think I've had 5 or 6 of them at one time, and that's 5 hours of brushing every 2 weeks. That adds up over the course of a summer, and
Definitely.
it's the opposite of what I'm intending these dogs to do. Like, I want them to be little management, little input, and to run my farm, whether I'm here, or not here. They are the first line of defense against everything. People, predators, whatever you name it, they're in charge of the property. So, I want the Gamper has been the best from what I have seen. The Central Asians, I think, are the best as like guard dogs. They tend to bond better to people, or harder, I guess, to people. The Gampers and the Caucasians are less people oriented. Don't Especially the Caucasians. They have zero desire to necessarily please a person. They don't want any. The bond, I guess you would say, is a lot less with the Caucasians. I call it the love tank. Like, you can pet them, they're full, they're done, they're going to walk away. They don't want anything to do with you after that. Your interactions with them are limited. The Central Asians are much more people oriented. They care what you think. They want positive feedback. And in a sense, I think that does make them better for personal protection work. Or to be perimeter patrol dogs or estate guardian type dogs. And the Gampers, I think, are in every okay. So you take all these breeds; they're all from the same. So the cradle of civilization, that was 7,000 BCE. That was like almost 10,000 years ago.
What is the cradle of civilization?
Ancient Mesopotamia, like where human existence started.
Okay.
So you look back at these ancient civilizations, they've got dogs with them in their pictograms, and they've got references to dogs. And the dogs that you see with them are these, it's not any currently existent species. It's a molossoid type, big, hairy, mastiff looking, livestock guardian looking thing. I mean, they're big dogs. So kind of what you see is a Gamper, Caucasian, Central Asian, this general phenotype of dogs is what they had back then. All other dogs came from these dogs. These were the first dogs that were with humans. And if you go back, all the Gampers, the Central Asians, the Caucasians, they all Tibetan Mastiffs, they all trace their roots to this one breed per se of dogs. It's not really a breed, but these type of dogs. And they are a Molosser type dog. It is a Molosser breed. And basically all these dogs spread out, and were geographically isolated. So mainly by a mountain range. And that's how these different breeds developed, was geographic isolation. So like in, the Himalayas, and your Tibetan Mastiff developed for high altitude, heavy snow. Your Caucasians were Caucasus Mountains, Georgia, Azerbaijan, those areas, Kazakhstan. And then you've got, Central Asians are kind of all across that area. Each region has their own specific dog that developed, and then they subsected dogs from this breed per se two different works. So you had step dogs, you had the mountain versions, and then you had like palace guardian versions. So they all
Mm,
develop different phenotypes. Your palace guardians are going to be your thick, like heavy boned,
like the
kind of
New
more like
York.
a modern day Caucasian. And then you've
Okay.
got your step dogs, they're smaller, faster. Those are going to be more for your nomadic, like tribe versions, I guess, where the dogs and the people are always on the move. Then you've got your shepherds that were more sedentary, your shepherd farmer types that it's less moving. Those dogs are going to be a little bit bigger, and more of a estate guardian type dog, estate livestock guardian dog. And they, when they did this, they didn't have, one. They're not like, hey, okay, this dog is going to be a livestock guardian. It's not ever going to be an estate guardian. That dog is still supposed to protect the farm, protect the tent, protect the village, protect your tribe as it moved. These dogs were adaptable to whatever the circumstance may be. And I think that's more realistic of a dog that you're asking to do these things. You want it to be able to be a perimeter patrol dog. You want it to, some do need to stick directly with the flock if you've got an LGD to protect against predators. But a lot of times you'll use two or three dogs. One of these dogs will be kind of on the move, kind of checking the perimeter and being on the outer bounds to make sure predators aren't coming through, and they're the first line of defense. And then you have multiple dogs that hang back with the herd, and that's kind of the most effective model I've seen for that. But the ideal dog is going to be able to do all of these things, is going to be able to also, deal with a human threat as well.
Okay. I feel like you kind of got into a question that me and Hunter like was stuck on. You kind of got into it because there is different grouping within the Molossers. I have a presentation that I worked on. I stopped working on it where I kind of studied this and kind of talked about it a little bit. But just the different groups, like you said, the mountain types, and then there's the more Molosser or master types. It's different groups, and I think what you said just really spreads throughout all of them. Environmentals and different and being isolated in different areas, being used for different things, cause them to be what they are today, or have those different looks, but still kind of have somewhat of the same origin.
That's correct.
For sure, for sure. I would like to ask you where you got your sources from after this on, if you could send it to me, just so I can look at it myself, because I do like, I want to talk about it a little bit, but I also want to see it in front of me as well.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, some of it's just stuff that I've studied, stuff that I know of the different breeds and regions. But
Right.
if you want the actual historical documentation, I can give you that on where um, the dogs originated from in these first like molossoid type
Okay.
Mesopotamian molossers.
Got you. Oh, now see had a question. He had a question for a minute. I ain't ignoring you, brother, but says, what do you hope to achieve at Lone Star Mastiffs? What is your end goal? Um, what is your goal now? And where do you want to see Lone Star Mastiffs in the next 10 years? Can you hear me?
Do you have any questions while we're waiting for him to get back on?
I don't know what's going on.
Am I
Can you
off?
hear me now?
You're on right now.
Okay. Somebody must have sent a hit
I
out.
can't hear Javier.
Oh man,
Oh, okay, he
somebody sent a
can.
hit out.
I don't know what his thing is, but what just got asked was, like, what are your goals with Lone Star Mastiffs? Like, what was your goal when you created the program? What do you want the program to look like in 10 years? That kind of.
So that's kind of an evolving topic, and as I kind of said before, it's changed. And what I wanted back then is not necessarily what I want now, and it's kind of evolving. And I'm still playing with it. I mean, obviously, I'm doing some pretty wild crosses that no one that I know of has done before. And some of them work, some of them don't. For my intended purpose. And part of that is doing temperament testing at 7 weeks. We use like a Voldhard puppy test, and checking the dog out to see if it fit what you envisioned it as when you decided to do said breeding. Um, Kind of what I'm looking for. So I want to have a dog that's a Lone Star Mastiff. Right now, I'm in phase 2 of this project. Phase 1 was just getting foundation stock that was purebreds. and getting the purebred stock that I wanted to start with. And I've also used other people's programs. Like I've got an American Sentinel canine. I've got a Doggo Donovan Pinscher that I've I actually just had a puppy off of that one that I bred with a Neo Bull Terrier cross. I've got one of Chad Mayo's dogs. So like I've got other people's crosses as well, and have used other people's work.
You
But
not to cut you off. I'm sorry. You can hear me now.
yep,
Okay. I did want to say my name's Javier with a J. Just to,
job here.
just
Okay,
yes, sir.
all
Yes,
right.
sir. Yes, sir. You ain't the first person. Last interview, Ryan Keaton did it. It's all right. Not to cut you off, but you did say you use people's crosses in there. Some of the programs, work. I did kind of comment on. I see you had a. Did you own the American Molasses, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So I've actually had a few. I've only used one in my breeding program. That was a breed that I had a lot of issues with, and one of the first ones that I started with, health wise.
Okay. What was it? So I did kind of comment on the creator's post, one of it. I said something. I do want to say I haven't owned a dog, but just from the look, it just doesn't look like a working or just a dog that can prove itself in the function as far as close quarter protection or being an estate guardian. So what was your experience like? Because I don't want to just speak on it, especially when I didn't own it. And
So like when I started with them, I was trying to build drive, and I knew what I was doing to cultivate it and build it. I didn't realize how much work it would be to get a product that I wanted. And then fighting the health issues with it was not worth it for me to continue long term using that. Now, I got one litter off my female. I got a runt from one of the creator's associates. That ended up being a really good dog. I've still got her. She was genetic cleared, health okay. And the other ones were not, and they were not suitable to be bred. And had to scrap that from my program, and that's part of doing this. I mean, not every dog is breeding worthy, and you need to know which ones are and aren't, and
right,
act accordingly. The I got two daughters off of that one female that I've used heavily in my program. One of them is Shadow. I'm very proud of her. And she's a nasty dog. She's got a ton of drive. But if you look at her and compare her to a regular Molossus or even a Neo, you're gonna be like, nah, that's like a supersized Eastern European Cane Corso, because that's kind of what she looks like. She doesn't look
yeah,
like Molossus. I keep her real skinny. And I'm actually, Ryan and I have some plans to breed her to one of his dogs, I think, in the next year.
okay,
I bred her with Chad's dog last year. I got two females that I kept back from that. So they're going to be 75% Neapolitan, 12.5% English Mastiff, and 12.5% Bull Terrier. So I kept two of those. They're drivey, gamey dogs. One of them is really, really nasty. The other one has a lot of drive, but it would be more towards animals like hogs or something like that, not necessarily human aggression. But the one has a ton of human aggression, um, real high defense drive. So, part of this is just kind of seeing what you get, and they're going to be bigger dogs, bigger in structure.
right,
And kind of the way it's buckling down or the way it's working out is I'm now working with 3 to 4 lines. And I'm almost to the point. So this is phase 2 where I solidify the lines that I'm going to use. And I've got all these different breeds in them. So my coefficient of inbreeding is very low. Um, the next step is I start inbreeding them, to get consistency, type, and form, and that's when I'm going to create a breed standard, and that's where I'm actually breeding for an exact structure. And I think I'm probably a year away from defining exactly what that structure is going to be. I kind of
okay,
want to see how. I've done some breedings mainly for myself, like not really to sell dogs, just because I wanted to keep pups back.
right.
That I don't know if they'll sell, and I've done a couple of those this year. that I'm really excited about. And, that's kind of when you're doing something like this, that's kind of the approach you got to take. You breed for yourself first and what you want.
Right.
And, if other people want what you got, that's great. As long as you've got enough money to pay the bills, at, do what you want to do. And if other people are interested, great. If not, great. Um, do you, and don't, take what other people have to say too heavily, because everything pisses somebody off. So,
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Most
100%.
definitely.
Yeah.
Most
um,
definitely.
but
Oh, oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead. No, I ain't mean to cut you off. What you gonna say?
So I mean, just back to that dog. Yeah, I have used that, but I'm far, far from that at this point.
Okay. Got you. Got you. Oh, so speaking of pissing people off, um,
Oh no.
so some people you really so people like band dog people, I'd say you use mastiffs. Actually, let's just scrap that. What do you think about the state of the pure and regular mastiffs? What do you think about just as a whole? You've talked about it a little bit.
I mean, I don't like it. I think we're breeding for extremes. I think we're sacrificing and compromising health. I think the show dogs are doing a lot of damage. I don't think temperament seems to be the back burner these days. Like, that's not even important. It's, first and foremost is looks, whatever that phenotype or color that you're going for may be, that, seems to take priority over everything else. And my whole program is the exact opposite approach. It's temperament first, health second, structure third, color fourth.
Okay, okay. I like that though. I do. I like how you approach the game though. Um, but it's some people that crap on the breeds a lot now, and then also use the breeds. Some even breed back to them. Would you say it's some procrastination within that, or do you think it's just respecting what's respectable within it?
I think that's, I mean, so it's you can't just crap on a whole breed. There's always going to be bad examples and there's always going to be good examples.
And I
So,
think that's within every single breed in the dogs.
yep.
Yes,
So I
sir.
think that some breeds have a higher instance of bad dogs for sure.
Yeah,
But you're always going to be able to find a good dog and, an untouched dog. But in general, I mean, that's kind of one of the reasons I gravitate towards these livestock guardians, and one of the reasons I like the Gamper. It's untouched by the show world. It's barely registerable. There's hardly a breed standard. Um,
yeah, they
it's
crossbreed them, correct? Like that, it's some crossbreeding going on to get a look.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they definitely do, and sometimes, even with wolves, or whatever's available, there's definitely some. I mean, it's a natural environment. It's not a show environment. They don't care. There's no reason for them to conform to a breed. That's not what they're doing. These are shepherds that have a job to do. They're guarding, flock. Part of that job is to make sure that the breed continues, that their lines continue. So if you only have access to a certain set of dogs, it's not like they have the whole country, of dogs. They might be isolated to two or three mountains in an entire mountain range where they're
right.
running their sheep, or their village, the dogs that are in their village. So it's not the situation we have in the U.S. And that's one of the things I like about the breed. It's, they're not watered down. They are relatively untouched and uncorrupted at this point. Now, over the next 10 years, I bet it happens. As it becomes a more popular dog in the United States, I foresee, just like other dogs, it's going to be an issue. I
It's
think
going to
I'm,
run its course. Yeah,
yep.
for sure. Okay. Hunter, what you got? You got something?
Oh, I had something. I lost it though. So if you got something, go for it. I'll remember it. Don't worry.
Okay. I think we're gonna start touching more on the crossbreeding. I mean, of course we have, but so you had a recent litter, three-sired litter.
It was dual sired. But
Dual-sired.
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So I've
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
got 4. Well, I got 3 litters on the ground, and I'm expecting another litter tonight.
Oh man. Wow. Okay.
Wow.
Best of luck with
Yeah,
that. Oh, so with that, what is the how do the puppies come out? What is it like? Are like half the puppies one sire? Do they give that more of a look? What's it like?
it totally, that's a gamble. You never know what you're gonna get. I was actually talking to somebody about this in the one of the Mastiff hybrid pages recently. A lot, and they were arguing that, not arguing, they were just saying, well, you rarely get an even 50-50 split. And that's also, I've done a lot of dual sired litters, and that's also been my experience is you only get 1 or 2 pups from one sire, and then the other sire will be the main one. And I don't know if that's because the semen's stronger, whatever. I don't know why that is, but that definitely tends to be the case. I've only had an even split on one dual sired litter that I've done, or relatively even split on one
Okay.
breeding.
Okay.
So it's pros and cons. Um, the con is that, you're not necessarily seeing a full range of 10 dogs that are coming from one sire. So, and these are experimental breedings. So you may
Right.
not, you're not getting the full range if you're only getting 2, 3 pups, but that may happen naturally anyways. You may only have a singleton or 3 pups in a litter. That just happened. I just did that doggo Donovan, Dutch Shepherd, German Shepherd cross, and I bred that with Heathen, who is 75% Neo, 25% Bull Terrier, and I only got 1 puppy out of it. Now, I
Wow.
really wanted that puppy. That puppy's mine. Like, I wanted this breeding, regardless of the outcome. I want that dog. But I would have much preferred, to have 5 dogs to select from to pick based on temperament which one turned out best. Um, but also, I mean, when you get a singleton, you can spend more time with it. So you're going to influence, it's going to be more heavily influenced by, whoever the breeder is versus, a litter with 10 puppies. Um, but I do, the big thing with the dual sired litter is you're jumping. So like you only get X amount of breedings out of a female, right? I
Right.
typically do 3 to 4, or 4 on the high side. Yeah, there's a lot of breedings I've only done 1 or 2 of, and only bred a female once or twice and then retired her. So what you're gaining by doing a dual sided litter is time. You only do 1 breeding a year, or if you're ethical, you only do 1 breeding a year, unless there's some other reason that you're doing it. Yeah, you can do 2 litters in a year. If you do that, you should probably rest them a couple of years after that. But for the most part, most breeders will only do 1 litter a year. So by doing a dual sided litter, if you have a female that you really like, but you want 2 different litters from her right now, like you're trying to advance a program or a goal, you can get those litters with 1 litter, those genetics with 1 litter. So you're basically beating the clock by a year, and
Okay.
that is my main reason that I've done that.
Got you.
Okay, that makes
Oh,
sense.
Hunter, you figured out what you wanted to say, or you
Yeah, I
still
mean, I
talking?
kind of just, my question is really, like, how many dogs are on your yard right now? Like, how many dogs does it take working together to build the Lone Star Mastiff?
I have 30 dogs and like 26 puppies right now.
Oof. Oof.
Oh my God. So that wow. Your dog food bill crazy. I
Yeah, I don't even want to talk about that.
Yeah.
You gonna get mad just talking about it. I bet. That's insane. Wow. Uh yeah, Hunter, I think he did kind of have a. So you said no, you really just asked him how many dogs he had on his yard. I thought you had something more deeper within that.
I don't know. I probably did, but
All right. Let me see what I got. So you catch flack for the crossbreedings you do. I
A lot
because
of it.
Facebook, that's the holy grail of just people gonna talk crap about you.
Yep.
Uh, so what do you do to try and prevent as much as much as possible dogs coming out messed up or just bad structure, bad temperament, mixed temperament. What are some things that you do to make sure your dogs come out to the
Okay,
best of their
so
ability?
the first thing is okay. So first off, checking structure on the parents. Making sure the parents are really sound before you breed them. If you and sometimes that's hard. I mean, and people get kennel blind. People don't want to admit that. Yeah, that dog didn't turn out the way that they wanted it to. They've put food into it for 3 years before breeding it, and it's not a breedable dog. And that'll ruin a program. So.
Right.
Uh, sometimes you just have to suck it up and say this dog isn't what I wanted it to be and what I expected it to be, and it's not of breeding quality. Rehome it, find it, a home, and whatever it is good at. I have the ability to test the dogs on a lot of different things. Um, and so it's very rare that like you just have an absolute menace to society that can't do something, that can't serve somebody for some function.
Right.
uh, a lot of but as a breeder trainer, you know what you're doing to be able to select the right dog for the right home. And that's like one thing a lot of people don't do, and I'm all about this, is selecting the puppy for your client. um, if the client wants to select the puppy and not listen to what I necessarily have, or they think they have the training and necessary experience, knowledge to take whatever dog and, you know, get whatever outcome they want out of it, I charge more for that because, um, I don't always necessarily agree with the dogs that people want. And that happens with color. As soon as I added color in, then people want a specific color and they don't care about the temperament. And I'm like, yeah, but that dog's not a family dog. Like that one's, that dog's really hot. It shouldn't be with kids. um this dog is more of a working dog, or it's more of a personal protection dog, or this is a livestock guardian that needs to be out in the field with livestock. This is not, your farm house guardian that's going to stay around your house and barn and be around your kids. This is a dog that doesn't want any of that. It doesn't need any people interaction. That dog needs to go out in the field with the stock. So part of that is experience and working. I've gotten to see things that a lot of people don't get to see because I'm working with so many breeds. um, each breed has their own thing, and there's a lot of subset. Like, okay, if you take Praces for example, you've got Praces that are watered down and should be house pets. You've got Praces that are stupid hot and that have just been repeatedly bred and bred and bred to be nasty, personal protection dogs that should not necessarily be in a family situation. That, they can be a dangerous dog. And that kind of dog, you need to be able to differentiate what you have in the puppy, across a litter and say, okay, this home's got, newborns and kids under 10 years old, three of them. And then this guy is a single male who is a veteran and has worked with military working dogs, and he wants a personal protection dog, but it's not going to be really around people. This guy can dedicate the time and training to it, whereas
Right.
the family doesn't necessarily have the time. So, like, really selecting, and you get a mix in, and this is even with a purebred litter, you're going to get a mix in every litter. There's going to be some that are better suited than others for each individual job. So you need to have as a breeder, you need to have an established protocol for how you differentiate the two. With livestock guardians, I'm putting some of these in estate guardian and family homes, and some of them are going straight out to stock. So I have my own little system of how I determine which goes which, and I separate them at 7 weeks. Some of them go in with Nigerian dwarf goats and poultry, and the other ones are not. They're being they're getting child interaction. They're getting more of the estate family home scenario type deal. What I use is, it's called the Voldhard puppy test. It was designed as a test for like Mals and these high drive dogs. Um, and I've kind of developed my own little. So you get numbers, right, and then you categorize the numbers. So when you're looking at an LGD, um, in this test, a one, is not suited for working purposes because they're too independent, they're too strong-willed. So to me, if you get a lot of ones on this test for an LGD, that's a good dog to be out with the stock. That's exactly what you want to see. And so I've kind of developed my own set of interpretation for what I want to see number wise based on the results of this test. The test is like gunfire, popping an umbrella in their face, dragging, throwing a paper ball and seeing if they pick up the ball, if they avoid the ball, if they pick it up and return it to you. When you pop the umbrella, do they hunker down or do they attack the umbrella? And you do this at 7 weeks old, having never done any of these things before. It's really testing their raw ability. And you get somebody that's never met these puppies before, and so I've got one of my old employees. She's also got all of her training certifications. She worked for me for like a year and a half. She was one of my best trainers and one of the only people that I do like board and train clients as well, and she's one of the only people besides myself I've trusted to actually work with the board and trains. Um, and so she knows what she's doing. She's got a ton of dogs, does a temperament test, has all the certs for it. And then also when you're doing these tests, it needs to be in a new area. It can't be any area that they've ever seen. So I've got like a porch that's on the back of the house, and the pups never go up there. Like I've got a whelping building where I've got pens that have buildings in them, and that's where the dogs whelp. Like, kind of just depending on the situation and what type of dog it is. Um, but you want to, expose them to stimulus that they've never had before. That being said, when they're puppies, you need to expose them to every stimulus prior to this. So like astroturf, water, like having them run through water, like a shallow filled pond, pool, anything like that. Obviously not so high that they can drown, but
Right.
just getting that texture. I have a bottle pit. I have them run through. It's just filled up with like Coke bottles and water bottles, and it's 4 feet high. And you just stick the puppies in, and praise them up, and have them try to chase a flirt pole through this, and see how they react to walking across such an uneven. It's like the McDonald's playpens that we had.
Yeah.
That, yeah, it's like the ball pens where you can sink into it, and just kind of seeing if that terrifies the dog, or if it, if they rise to the occasion, they power through it. Also chainsaws and
Mm.
leaf blowers, so that, or an air compressor, the noise that an air compressor makes, feeling the air, blast them in the face. That's a whole lot of stimulus for a real young puppy. But getting them used to stuff like that, that's all really important when you're raising puppies. Um, and I tell people all the time, you can make any dog do anything. It's how much money and time are you willing to spend to produce that outcome. Because you can train a dog to do the exact opposite of what 1,000 years of genetics are telling it to do. But that is a matter of how much time and money are you willing to put into that, and why. Like, why would you do that? Because if there's a better dog that's genetically bred for a certain purpose, why not use that dog?
Right.
But if your end goal is a versatile dog, it might be it's better to pull from a lot of dogs that are really good at a certain thing to add components to a temperament if your end goal is a dog that you want to be able to do everything. And it may not do everything to the best that another dog does it. It's more like a jack of all trades, and it's decent to good at everything. The one place you can't compromise on is if it's a guard dog. It has to be able to guard. It's got to be able to bite. Your life may be, your life or your family's life might depend on it. Your stock, your
Right.
farm, like I said earlier. So that's the only place you absolutely cannot compromise.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Hunter, what you got, bro? You got anything else you want to ask him?
Yes, kind of just with the Lone Star Mastiff. Like, obviously, you have a ton of different breeds that have gone into your program. Breeds that are kind of out there today in the world, like purebreds. what do you think is the breed that's closest to what you want the Lone Star Mastiff to be at the end, if there is one?
Uh, I really like Presos or Presos, but they don't. That it depends on the line that you're pulling from. Um, some of them are just too hot. Some of them don't necessarily have an off switch, and I like their drive. I like their intelligence. The Dane pheno, the taller structure on the Presos. I like that phenotype. Um, but they're a little bit on the small. So I don't think there's any one right now that fits every category that I'm trying to do. Otherwise, I would just be breeding that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think the Braces are probably the closest, but they lack the size, structure, and they're harder to bond with a family. Um, and like I don't let my so like I've got dogs that are running the property all the time. I don't let my Braces run the property all the time. They would tear up my livestock, get into stuff. They're definitely you know um, a liability. So they're like in three different. There's three different. No, there's actually four different fences to get to the pen that the Braces are in. Same with my like Malinois Dutch. These high drive dogs that I have. Those are all in a specific area. And so that's not something I want as a farm owner or what I necessarily want with this breed. I want the breed to be able to adapt to the situation and, um, you know, kind of like the LGDs do, they rise to whatever occasion is presented. They look for things that are not, they have a normal life routine, and then anything out of the normal is something they don't like. They're probably going to aggress on something like that. Um, and I really like that on-off switch that the Mastiff with the heavier Neapolitan and English content have.
Okay. Yeah.
I think I'm gonna ask you one thing. What do you think about people that hit a lot of people with the approach to uh as far as the state guardians, these dogs need to be pressured. These dogs don't show their worth anymore. What do you think about the people that are real religious about the pressure on dogs when it comes to their job? What do you think the right approach is in your eyes?
I think each dog is different. I think you have to tailor make a program for each individual dog. If you apply too much pressure to some dogs, they crack, and that's not necessarily the dog's fault. Like now, there are some dogs that just, I mean, you need to call out of your program, rehome to a pet type home because they're gonna crack under pressure every time. They're not necessarily a dog that can be used as an estate guardian that brings that to the table. And I've definitely seen that before. But also, a lot of people are applying too much pressure at too early of an age. These dogs take a long time to mentally mature, and their size, throws people off. Especially you've got experienced decoys that have been working mals and these personal protection dogs, and they may have years of experience, but you throw them in with a bunch of mastiffs that are 2 years old, and that dog is mentally a toddler. They can't handle a ton of pressure. There's it's basically like handling a child. And these handlers, they see the size and they expect, because they're used to dealing with smaller dogs, they expect something coming out of the gate that is not a reasonable or realistic expectation. So they apply a lot of pressure, and they may break the dog right then and there. Um,
Right.
and so with mastiffs, they require a much slower approach, and it's a lot more agitation work than throw it in, not necessarily forcing them to bite right off the bat. That may take till they're 3 or 4, and most times at 4, that's when you would expect them to be fully mature and fully capable of handling a situation. That's a young but still an adult dog. Now, I've come across situations like I've got one of the Caucasians I had, her brother went to Canada in the deep woods, and her brother was only 8 months old, I believe, and there were poachers that were hunting a moose on this property. Dog went after him. Dog got shot. Dog still bit them. Suspects were apprehended and everything. Dog did everything it was supposed to do at 8 months old. And, that's an incredible story. Glad it panned out that way, but, not every dog is capable of doing that at 8 months old. And that breed, too. I mean, the livestock guardians, too, are also slow to mature. They're not. I think I think that it has to do a lot with the size. The bigger it is, it tends to mentally mature slower.
Okay. Hunter, you got anything?
No, I think that's it. I'm good.
Okay. All right. Well, we appreciate you, man. I think this was a good episode. Definitely dropped some good game. Uh, that's it for Catch Dog Concepts this week. This week coming up, I will be out of town for a few days, so this will be the last episode for a minute. I got a couple final words. Guess if y'all wanna step off, y'all can. Um, but I just want to say, Catch Dog Concepts here. We just here to grow, uh, make some good connections, meet people, have fun doing it, make some great content, learn about dogs, and not do too much arguing. You know what I mean? Just me myself, I'm not really a person for that. I don't like to argue. I don't like to fight. Um, and I mean verbally. So I don't do too much posting about people or bashing people. I don't think that's right. So I think let's just try and spread more love, man. That's all I want to say. Spread love. If you see somebody and you think they're not doing something right, help them out. Message them. Be like, hey, I can give you some tips, something like that. Because I appreciate that, and I have some people that would do that with me, and I think it'll help the community a lot more if we got that. Um, but yeah, like I said, I don't do too much arguing with nobody. Uh, and this is what I really wanted to say. If I have a disagreement with anybody, I don't hate you. I won't disrespect you. At the end of the day, we're talking about dogs. Um, and yeah, when we just talk about dogs, it's never that serious. I don't think. But when we get outside of that, that's something different. But we haven't got to that. I just want to make that be known. I respect everybody. Hopefully, everybody respects me. Uh, like these two gentlemen, so respect to y'all. Appreciate y'all for the night. Think it was a great episode. Yeah, play with y'all mama and not me. Uh, y'all have a good one. Appreciate everybody for came out and supporting. Thank y'all.
Well,